All right, everybody, welcome to Let's Be Family. Denisse, I never know how to start these things.
I'm looking at you like, why did your voice just went like an octave higher? From
Did it
when
go
you were
high?
Talking. Yeah, you have like.
It was like, can you pass the butter?
Probably shouldn't say
pass
the
the
way
butter
I
voice.
say.
You know, like when you're asking somebody for a favor, your voice gets higher because
Yeah.
you're trying to.
No, we call it your customer service or your phone voice.
Mhm. Yeah, that works too. Yeah, your phone voice.
Your phone voice
Yeah.
just gets really pitchy.
Hi, can I speak to?
Hi, this is. I'm calling from. Can I speak to?
I hate it so much. I try not to do it.
Yeah, it's like customer service.
It's a subconscious thing that we do, I think, when we're trying to get somebody to
Like us?
Yeah. Yeah, it's something that we do. Like we used to have to they would teach us actually to fight against that when we would have to do phone calls and dialing for booking appointments for selling insurance, which is like the worst phone call to make when you're, trying to get somebody to meet with you and they don't know who you are and they're not expecting you to call them. It's a nightmare.
It's like, why would you trust me with my financial information?
Yeah. Yeah, so it'd be that kind of thing, and so we'd be calling and they would tell us like put your head down and like lean down so that your throat is kind of like
really that look ridiculous.
And,
no, but listen.
And they would say low and slow, like talk slow,
Yeah.
like talk like you're trying to talk to somebody like who doesn't know what you're talking about. Talk real slow and you keep your voice low, keep it deep, and like try not to be salesy. Try not to be like where you're asking somebody for a favor. Just make it very like nonchalant. Because it's just, I think it's just one of those things that we naturally do when we're trying to get somebody to do something for us. Again, it's simple as, it's like, hey, would you pass the butter? Like your voice goes
I would never ask somebody to pass me the butter in that tone, but okay.
That was
but interesting. So last week, I actually have somebody, I have to make calls in my job pretty often. And I had somebody who, like, I was asking if they could verify their information for HIPAA purposes before I can let them know about what the reason of my call. And this lady was like, no, this is like a phony call. I'm not giving you my date of birth. Like, no, nobody would call me about this. Thank you. And she hung up on me, and I was like, oh, okay.
Yeah, it is kind of like the general rule of thumb when somebody calls you and asks you for information, though. It's like you don't give it to them. It's like if you call into the bank or something like that, you're fine to give them your information because you called. But if someone calls you and says, this is your bank, I was calling about your account and blah, 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 like if they're calling you, they're not going to ask you to verify your information.
I understand for like being suspicious these days. Everybody's suspicious about people. Like I don't answer phone numbers that are not on my phone just because I don't like spam calls. Like leave me a message, and if it's something that if you're somebody I know, I will call you back. I will text you back something. But if it's not a number I have on my phone, I get it. But I was just like a little bit like, oh, what? Okay. Yeah. Thank you very much for your time. Like you don't have to be rude. Like, you can say, hey, I don't feel comfortable about it, so no, I'm not going to verify the information. Thank you.
Like you can Google the number in your phone, call us,
exactly. Like,
and then give us the information.
Like you recognize this number, I'm not calling you. This is not the first time we've called you. We obviously fill prescriptions here, so but anyway, I get it.
Yeah. So I want to bring this up because I found out today that my wife has a superpower.
I do not have superpowers.
You have a superpower, I said.
I'm just amazing.
Let's not get ahead of ourselves.
I'm just amazing.
It's called, your superpower is called amazing. I'm not talking about your, like, magnificent mom, amazing wife. I'm not talking about those superpowers.
Okay.
Right? That's real. About? That's very much real. I'm talking about a real, actual, supernatural ability that I found out today. So we were at a Popeyes eating some chicken because we were waiting on it was right next door to the car place. We had to get an oil change, and so we had a few minutes to kill. So we were getting some breakfast, lunch, whatever it was. My wife starts talking to me about how specific? I don't want to get real specific on this, but my wife was talking to me about about a person, a total stranger that she's never met in her life, that is interaction that she had with this total stranger. Yesterday?
Yeah, like a couple days ago.
And she's just randomly, she brings this up. We're talking about this person, And what, like 3 minutes later, 5 minutes later, maybe 5 minutes later, that person walked in the Popeyes. And my wife thought this wasn't a big deal. Like, she was like, "Hey, that's the lady." I was like, "Wait, what lady are you talking about? The crossing guard?" And she's like, "Yeah."
Yep, she's working here.
And I thought that was like the most interesting thing that's happened to me all week. First of all, we never.
Why, I was so nonchalant about it?
I mean, we're just the fact that all that lined up, like, because we don't ever just go and eat in Popeyes.
Right.
Like, ever.
Not really. It's funny to me because I'm like terrible with names. Like, are you bad with names? Like, there's certain names that.
Wait, we're not. Hold on. Let's come back to the name thing. I just want to make sure the world understands that my wife has the ability to conjure people out of thin air just by bringing them up in a conversation. So just be warned, people.
Okay.
I thought this was. I'm blown away. I've known you for 16 years, and I never knew you could do this. But we did it.
It's just started in Texas. We moved to Texas, and now I have superpowers.
I'm here for it, though. I think let's see how far
we
can take
see how
this.
we can try it. Yeah.
I mean, look, it was just interesting. It's like it
was just funny because like we had just got done like talking about this that I was saying, and lo and behold, this lady
straight
just,
up
like,
walks in,
and I'm like, I see her. And she doesn't really know who I am. I know who she is.
Yeah.
But she doesn't know who I am. So
yeah.
I was just like, okay. So I'm looking at Duke and I'm like, yeah, so that is the lady.
Mm-hmm.
And he's like, no. I'm like, yeah, like straight up. She's wearing the same hat. That's her.
I related it in my mind to where you think of a movie or you think of a song and then all of a sudden that movie is on TV or that you know whatever. I related it to that, but I feel like this is way more
specific.
It would have been way harder to come up with this, like just statistically, the fact that we were talking about this person and right then they came in the room. So it's one of those things. Cool. It's like that. Sometimes I think there's a consciousness thing going on that we're not aware of. Yeah, I don't know about the not a simulation. I don't think we're in a simulation.
No.
But
okay. Yeah, I guess it was funny. And it was funny, though, because I, like, so, what are the chances this is the same lady, right? For, like, those that are thinking. Yeah. But we're finishing our food, and I can hear bits and pieces of her conversation with whoever she was. And she is talking about exactly the same thing that I was talking about. So that just, made it funnier to me.
Yeah.
Because I'm like, oh, okay, you see? I was right.
Yeah, it's wild.
Yeah, it's funny.
Yeah, I thought that was pretty cool.
Anyway, but a shout out to all those cross guards. I do appreciate
crossing guards.
Yes, thank you.
Can we talk about crossing guards for a minute?
Sure.
There were some that in Mobile, when we used to live in Mobile, Alabama, there was like a couple of them. There was a man and there was a woman that I remember that I would, come across regularly. And there's some people that do crossing guard stuff where they've got these moves.
Yeah.
They've got these crossing guard moves where they are so dialed in to their craft that it looks like they're like popping and locking, right? Like it looks like they're doing some serious moves out there. And I'm like, yo, these people are on it.
Yeah, like I think in Mobile, like most, or at least where our kids went to school, most crossing guards were police officers, which I think that's awesome. Like that, because it's part of their profession. And I think maybe sometimes, I don't know the rank or the hierarchy in police, in a police station or whatever. But I mean, I am appreciative of them. I think sometimes they might get a bad rep or whatever. But and most crossing guards where our kids went to school, they're actually women, and they did an amazing job.
Yeah, there's this crossing guard on the way to our son's school, who. In the mornings, if I'm walking with him to school, which I've only done a handful of times now, 2 or 3 times, but each time I'll be like
far away.
Like I'll be down the street and not even paying attention, and she'll just be yelling at me. Yeah. Does she do that to you too? Good morning.
Good morning. She was so cute. She was so nice. The first day of school that we were walking the kids, like she made a point to say good morning to every parent and child that was walking.
Just adding to the life experience.
Yeah. Good. My high school was right next to the main highway, El Libramiento, and that's like a 4-lane highway.
Mm-hmm. No crossing
There
guard?
was no crossing guard there ever. No, like you just knew how to go. Like when the red line was going, you just time yourself to go. Like you just run like a chicken with your head cut off if the car's coming.
Is this elementary school, you said?
This is high school.
Oh, high school. Well, high school is fine.
I mean, this was a savage crossing. Like,
this
is a 4-lane highway.
Yeah.
And it's not.
Like there should always be a crossing guard.
Yeah, like adults. I would think that at least maybe outside of the school, like there should be some authority there, like just kind of making sure. But I guess it's just different.
But it's
it is.
It's fine.
Is.
Hey, so I was having a conversation yesterday with a client.
Okay.
Of mine.
I thought you were going to say with AI.
With AI, my AI robot girlfriend.
Bro.
No, I was having a conversation with a client, and we started talking about first. I don't remember why, but I brought up our missionary experience when we were in Mexico at the beginning of our marriage, and I was just having this conversation, and I was just thinking about how I'm grateful for the ministry life experience that we had at the beginning of our marriage, because when we first got married and we were working in Mexico, we had the opportunity to kind of head up and be like the coordinators of this new ministry that opened at the church we were serving at. It was a house of prayer, and so every day of the week at least we were there. We were there in the morning. We were either leading worship sets or interceding or whatever, and we would have several hours every day that were either in worship and prayer and just kind of always in that atmosphere. Our office was in the room and all of that. So I was just thinking about how it was just very, very helpful, I think, and I'm grateful that we had that time, even just as kind of like the backdrop of our first ministry appointment, and even like in the early years of our marriage and all of that we were just kind of like bathed in prayer and worship and all of that. I just looking back on it, I feel like there was a lot going on in that season of our lives for different reasons that was very difficult, like very complicated. We were surviving by the skin of our teeth financially. I don't even know how we made it, to be honest with you, some months, but
the grace of God.
The grace of God. But I'm just like looking back on it, I was just real grateful as I was thinking about it for that season of life and what we had access to. And I think it served as a cool foundation for us getting started in, first of all, in ministry. Well, first of all, in marriage, and second of all, in ministry.
Yeah. For me, it was very a blessing and an honor to be able to go back home and serve at the church where I grew up. And I mean, definitely the church has changed a lot over the years, not just in terms of leadership, just the church itself has changed a lot. And being able to be there for that season and be in the trenches for that season was definitely very valuable, I would say. It was there was a lot of valuable lessons still I learned about it. It's definitely tricky, I think, as you're growing up and you go somewhere where people know who you are when you're a child. There's definitely that aspect of sometimes I feel like people don't let you grow up. Like they never get to see you, or they never really see you as an adult. You kind of hope for that chance, so they'll give you that first impression again and give you the opportunity for them to see have you've grown and everything. So I definitely enjoyed it.
And there was this was actually the reason I thought about it, why I was having this conversation, why I even brought it up. Being in that atmosphere of being so connected to worship and prayer and all of that, having access to that, I was thinking back to an experience that I had with God where even in the midst of all of that, there was still like there were times where within myself I would kind of be distancing myself from God.
Oh yeah.
You know what I mean? And how even when it was my job really to worship and to pray, and I mean hours a day we'd be, leading worship sessions and that sort of thing. And I remember specifically this circumstance, just so that this can make sense, what I'm saying, where God was speaking to me and about what doesn't matter, but it was an issue of trust in my life. And there was an area of my heart that I really felt God was speaking to me about and asking me to give this over to him. And I wasn't ready to. I felt like I wasn't ready to. I felt like I needed to hold on and kind of stay in control of this thing that God wanted. And it wasn't talking about a sin issue or anything like that. It was just an area of trust. And so I was like, no, God. But then I had to deal with kind of this uncomfortability within myself of
like, how do I lead worship when I'm in this place of mistrust, or where I have things that I'm holding on to that I'm, not struggling for the sake of struggle, but that I'm like, having a little bit of a back and forth with God about it. And I think that sometimes that speaks to our misunderstanding of performance, because I think as believers and in the setting of church, especially when you are in a church setting and you are serving in the church or working in a church, and you have to do things like prayer or leading worship or teaching or speaking or praying for the sick or anything that is related to that, it could be so easily for people that are outside to look at you as if you have already achieved perfection, or look at you with like, oh, this person is so close to God and they probably don't struggle with trust. They don't have any issues in their life and their character that are still being dealt with. And it pushes the person that is in that position to sometimes fall into the lie of performance, where you look so good and so put together outside, and you are just doing these things even while dealing with chaos or discomfort inside. And I do believe that there's a graceful balance to that, because I think that even in the midst of going through things or dealing with things, God does not expect you to be perfect in the position where you are serving in. And I think that the existence of those things happening within your heart also create a wonderful place of vulnerability from where you can minister to God, and God can use that to even minister to others.
For sure. And there wasn't a feeling of God like angry, God beating me over the head with this thing, like, you're such a bad Christian, you're such a bad son because you're not giving me this thing. It wasn't that at all. It was actually, I really experienced God's patience and God's kindness. And love is patient, love is kind. Like, that's the nature of God. And sometimes in our weird kind of preconceived ideas that we have of God, we have this lens that we view God through, and we have this idea that he's angry at us, and if we're not responding in perfection, then he's mad and he's frustrated and we're letting him down. And it's like, you're never letting God down, because you were never holding him up in the first place. He's very secure in who he is by himself. He doesn't need you to hold him up, so you're not letting him down. All of this is a walk of faith. It's by grace through faith, and it's his grace and it's his faith in us, and so we're just all learning how to come into that alignment and that agreement, and it's all just by the grace of God. And I experienced his kindness for me, just a really profound way in that season, because he gave me time. But I remember that, and this went on for the better part of a week. I remember being in worship sessions, leading worship, but kind of dealing with that uncomfortability just within myself, because I knew that I was giving God praise and giving God worship, but at the same time, I was holding back from him.
Yeah, and you were being genuine when you were worshiping, you're praising him, you're giving him but you know that at some point, his presence has the ability to still highlight and show up those areas where you are yet to give him access to. And the reason I think that this is important for us to know as believers is that God is not going to abuse his lordship over you. He's not going to violate that trust that exists between you and him. I think sometimes we can look at God and if we're going through stuff, think or say, well, if he wants it, he can take it. Like, he's Lord. He can do whatever he wants. Yes, but he won't. He won't for the sake of relationship with you, because he is not an abuser.
Yeah.
And I don't think we realize when we say things like that it's as if we would be okay with him behaving or acting that way, but that's not in his character. I remember specifically something while I was growing up that was very dear to my heart, and I wanted to give it to God because I wanted to be at peace. I wanted to be comfortable trusting him with my future, trusting him with my dreams, trusting him with the decisions that needed to be made in my life without me having to be in control of my decisions per se. And I remember using this expression within my interaction with God where I said, I want to give you these things, but my hands are closed. So I'm opening my hands. I want to develop with you an open hand policy, because that's the kind of trust I want to have between you and me, even though it feels as if my hands are actually closed because I don't know how to give this to you. And I remember, like you say, experiencing that, like, just kindness from God to say that's okay. It's okay for you to be honest at the fact that it's hard for you to let this go.
Yeah, and so it was just really cool in that season to see how God was patient with me, but kind of allowed me to feel that not distance, even in a negative sense, like, because it wasn't at all like I hadn't turned my back on God. I wasn't trying to be openly rebellious. It was actually that it was this thing within me where the thing that God wanted, I didn't know how to get there in my mind.
Yeah.
And so I was like telling God no, but it was painful to me because I wanted to tell him yes.
Yeah.
I wanted to say, yeah, God, I surrender everything to you. I think that's something that we go through in our lives is we say, God, I surrender my life to you. I surrender my all. I surrender who I am. I surrender my whole life to you. And I think we're sincere when we do that.
Yeah.
But then it's walking out the process where the Holy Spirit begins to illuminate areas of our life where he shows us individual areas where we come face to face with this reality that, you know what, I've elevated this thing in my life to a position of prominence. I've elevated this thing to an area in my life where it's actually taking God's place. And I'm actually trusting more in this, or I'm relying more on this, or I want this thing a little bit too much to where it's actually hindering me from surrendering everything over to you, God. And so I come face to face with those daily things or seasonal things or whatever, where it's like, okay, I've given my life to you, God, but now this area of my life is actually, I realize that it's going to cost me something in order for me to actually lay this down. And that's where I was, and I just felt like I'm not there yet. And it was it's so dumb, like when we get through it and we look back on it and we recognize the audacity of the thought in my head to say, no, God, I think I'm better off. Like, I think I know what I'm doing here with this. I know you're asking me for this, but I think it's safer in my hands than it is in your hands. And just like the audacity of having that thought, but it makes sense at the time because we can't see him in just our finite way of thinking. It's like, oh, so wait, if I turn this over to you, that means I have to trust you with something that's really near and dear to my heart and something that I really care about. And what if something goes wrong? And it's just kind of getting to that place of trusting God with all of the different areas of our lives. And I think that's an ongoing thing that we all go through. But it was really, really cool in that season. Just to wrap the story up, it was God brought me to a place in Scripture, and it was 2 Samuel chapter 6, which isn't going to make sense because you don't know the context of what I'm saying. But to me, it made perfect sense. Like I was able to see an example of this in Scripture in the life of David, where it was dealing with something that I didn't understand, but then going through a process with the Lord where he allowed me to see that it's worth it to hand this over to you, regardless of the cost. And I came out of that season with this phrase in my head of, God, I want more of you at any cost.
Yeah.
I want more of you no matter what it costs me.
Yeah.
And it was just such a sweet kind of season of intimacy with the Lord that I came through in that season. And it's just cool how sometimes, we start with something that is challenging or frustrating or difficult, or we don't understand it, and how God will use that to bring us into a place of just greater growth and intimacy with him.
Yeah, I think surrender is one of those things that we can think that just by saying it takes place, but it's I like the way you said it. It's an everyday thing.
Yeah.
It's a daily interaction that we have with the Lord. And there are definitely seasons where we will have to maybe go to a deeper level with something else that we didn't recognize that we were in control of. And not because we haven't given it to God, because you can still give something to God, but still have some sense of, I got this.
Yeah.
This underlying, like, I'm cruising with this.
Yeah.
I'm good. And then God will come and show something that is hidden underneath that is actually causing more damage to your life than any good. So he comes in and he begins to highlight that to say, okay, we need to do some adjustments here for your sake.
It's like there's this episode of The Office where Michael, he's having financial problems. So he walks into the middle of the office and he might have been in his office. I don't remember where he was, but he just goes, I declare bankruptcy. He just yells it.
Yeah.
And Oscar's like, just saying the word bankruptcy doesn't mean anything's going to happen.
Exactly.
He's like, I didn't just say it, I declared it.
Yeah, exactly.
But it's like that thing. It's like, I can make the declaration.
Yeah.
God, I surrender to you. And that's great. It's a beautiful declaration, and those experiences are awesome. But then it's like getting into the nitty gritty where the rubber meets the road of, this is an actual thing that I now need to walk this out.
You have to walk out. Yeah. Yeah, and like I said, like there's things that we can say, oh, I surrendered this, and that moment we have or we feel that grace to do it. And then you continue to walk, the Christian walk with the Lord, you continue to walk, and then you'll face something that might require you to surrender that again. And then you're like, oh, hold up. Like, I thought we were done with surrendering. Like, I thought we got it all in the last time.
Yeah.
And he's like, no, it's a new level, or it's a deeper growth area that you're facing. Good. So don't just take it for granted. Like, it's not like that. It's not a one time you got it all and then that's it. No, it's at that moment you face it, you walk through it, but that prepares you for the next one. For the next one that's going to come, because he knows that you will have those things. He knows your entry from the beginning, so he knows that you'll be at that crossroad again. But he's, in the meanwhile, he is setting up, he's putting things in place in your character, in your understanding, the revelation that you have and receive from him that will position you correctly, so that when you come to that place, you are equipped to do that.
Yeah, 100%.
So, pretty cool.
Pretty cool.
There was definitely a lot of things that we had to surrender when we were in Mexico. In that season, there was a lot.
A lot.
It felt like a lot. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, there's parts of life, parts of our walk with the Lord, I think, that feel like a sprint, and parts that feel like a marathon. and parts that feel like we're resting
Yeah.
on the sidelines or whatever, but it's all good, you know.
And there's somewhere like you definitely see your like your personality like out raw, like in live color, and you're like, oh, I didn't know that was in me. Like, oh my God.
Yep.
I didn't know I had this much anger, or I didn't know I had this much like resentment or fear or frustration.
Yeah.
Whatever it is. And
Yeah.
and you face circumstances that God can definitely use to sharpen you.
Yep.
To fix you, to get you to where you need to be. So
yeah.
So since we're talking about that, let me. I have a question that I want to ask, and I think this could be a funny, interesting question. What will your warning label say if every person came with one?
Warning label. I know what yours would say.
Oh yeah, well, tell me, what would my label be?
This product has no filter.
No filter included.
No filter. No. Yours might say something different than that. What? Let me think.
With no filter comes definitely like very high emotions. I would say. So that's
objects in mirror are closer than they appear.
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah. So yeah, probably just because like I'm a pretty easygoing. You'd probably agree with for the most part. Like in general, like I'm pretty easygoing. You might not agree. The world sees me as pretty easygoing. You see the real me. Like you see the me that can
your warning label will be read the fine print. Read the fine print before signing the contract. Just kidding.
Do you feel like you knew the fine print before you signed your contract to be with me forever?
I think we had a pretty like realistic relationship before we got married. So. We definitely had what?
Knives out. I have a tendency. I was gonna say like I'm fairly easygoing, but I have the tendency to like I can get to a point where I can snap. You know, I can get to a point where I can blow up, and unfortunately, at times like step outside of my character and just kind of be like sharp tongued or say something that's not pretty. You know, so I think that my warning label might be something like that. Like if you push it too far, it's gonna blow up.
It might explode.
Yeah, can be explosive.
I've always had a very like strong character. I've always been very like straightforward, and I'm not trying to sound religious because I don't want to sound religious, but honestly, like coming to know myself more in light of who God has called me to be and who I am in Him has like really helped me to understand that there's a reason why He gave me the ability or gave me that characteristic to be straightforward.
Yes.
So it's not a bad thing when you put it in the context of how God has designed it to be.
Yeah.
And in Him. So as I've learned to be more myself in Him, I feel like I have found more freedom to really be who I am.
Yeah.
And again, I think while growing up, there was like different things that made me feel more like, oh, I can't be this way, or it shouldn't be this way. I have to be the other way, and trying to make me be something that I'm not. So that's when things get out of hand. Like there is so much freedom in you becoming who God has called you to be.
Yes.
There is so much freedom in understanding why He's giving you the character He's given you, and you know, based on your purpose and your assignment, and that's where you find that freedom to be yourself. And then so many times we do deal with like labels that might be put on ourselves that are not of our own, but they might be because of the culture you are in or because of what people perceive you to be. And sometimes we can have other people's expectations of where our life should be or should look like more as a roadmap. We take them more as a roadmap than what God has really laid out for us.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, that's really good. So we're running out of time. We're gonna wrap this up. And
then somebody's
have time to do?
grass.
Yeah, now they're cutting grass outside the window.
So we definitely don't want that on the.
Do I have time for my stunt?
Oh, sure. Go ahead and try it.
I'm gonna do a stunt.
So I think. Oh, that would be your warning label.
What?
May get silly at times.
Oh.
May get stupid at times.
I get real stupid when I'm tired. I get real stupid real quick. Like it just shows up out of nowhere. Yeah, I've freaked people out.
It's okay. I love it. I love it.
So I'm gonna do a stunt. A food challenge. Is that cool?
Sure.
Hopefully you're not picking up all this weed whacker noise. By the way, I think we call it a weed. I always called it a weed whacker in New Jersey. I think people in the South call it weed eater.
A weed eater.
And I think there's another name for it, but I always just call it a weed whacker. Weed whacker. Weed whacker sounds way cooler, doesn't it? Anyway, the thing that you hold and you trim the edges and you cut. Anyway,
for those that can't see.
So I'm gonna do this food challenge. You've probably seen this.
Oh.
So supposedly, I can't get this bag open. It's a sleeve of saltines. Supposedly, you can't eat 6 saltines in 60 seconds or less. 6. Let's see. So is that 6? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. All right.
I think so.
6 saltines. Man, I haven't had a saltine in a long time. But yeah, apparently you can't do 6 saltines in under a minute, but I'm going to see if I can do it. All right?
Okay.
I mean, there's people have done it. It's not like no one's ever done it, but they say it's real tough. It's going to like dry your mouth out like crazy. I haven't had a drink of water in a minute too, so this might be tough. But I'm going one at a time. That's how I'm going to do this.
I was going to say do like 3 at a time.
Some people do 3 at a time, do 3, and then the next 3. I'm going to go one at a time, and I'm just going to try to power through.
It's going to take some time, yeah. Oh my
I feel like
God,
I did this
so
once.
Loud.
I feel like I did this once when I was in. Yeah, but I think the microphones I don't think are picking it up.
Oh, okay.
You going to time me? All right, count me down.
1, 2.
Oh, wait, hold on. You don't start a countdown at 1.
Oh. What?
So we're going to go 3, 2, 1, go.
Okay. 3, 2, 1, go. I see the muscles in your mouth moving. It's like, I didn't even know you had those muscles. You're down to 3? Really? And 3 to go. Gosh. Getting dried there, huh? Don't even try to talk. Don't even. Chalk, chalk, chalk. Is that 4? Oh, we're a 5. Okay. You finish? Finish? Done?
Done. Minute 7.
Wow.
I
Supposed
failed.
to do it under a minute? I think if you do a few at a time, you would have made it.
I'm sorry you guys had to watch that. That was maybe
rough.
the most vulnerable I've ever been on camera. All right.
So
That's it.
With that, we're going to say goodbye.
We wanted to save that for the end so I didn't have to talk anymore after that. I didn't get it. Maybe I'll try it again someday. I got pretty close. All right. Thanks for stopping by, guys. Love y'all. Be blessed, and we'll see you on the next one.